Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you. Hang on a minute. I need to turn my. Wait, sorry. Can you speak again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. You're louder now. You're louder.
Okay, great. So, how's it going?
Um, yeah, yeah. Good. Thanks. You?
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so before we start, I would just want to clarify the proposition we'll be discussing is having or birthing children is unethical, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would make it more. Also, just by the way, you're happy for me to record, right?
Oh
Like, I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know if I'll
sure. I'm
actually.
I'm doing that on my end too, so just informing you of that too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said. In our Instagram chat.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of like scope it out to be just creating sentient life in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get into it. I don't know exactly where you want the conversation to go,
Mm-hmm.
but like I sort of try to have the conversation about the the act in the abstract and what we should do in reality kind of separately, because I think they are very different questions when it comes to this topic, but I do think they inform each other. I think at least for me my approaches are quite different, but we can get to that if you want.
Yeah. So, so I'll just start by asking you when you say that. Okay, so just to be clear, when you say creating life, you also just mean just even if it did not involve any actual giving birth thing, but even if you wanted someone into existence, that would be bad, right?
Sorry, what was the last bit you said? I wondered some. Is it you
Yeah,
mean
you
like
just wave a magic wand and some being just comes into
yeah,
existence.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the actual fact that like they're physically coming out of a human. Like if you pressed a button and it did the same, um
Right.
it'd be the same. Yeah, and I don't know how you were planning the conversation to go. Did you, because you've read the page on the handbook website, right?
Right.
Did you want to like go through any bits that like you didn't understand or take issue with, or how did you want to do it?
Yeah, I would like to know when you say unethical, do you have some kind of do you have some conception of which normative ethical position you're talking about when you say it's unethical?
Um, I that's a question I'm still like struggling with. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly where I fall in terms of like deontology or utilitarianism
Mm-hmm.
or any other sort of frameworks that people can come up with. It's still something I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
But I think like generally antinatalism can fall into all of them. I mean, if someone wanted to take the consent approach, then that I guess that would be more deontological. Um, but then someone could take also like a, well, I guess it would be utilitarian or deontological approach, if I'm not wrong. But please mistake me if I am. For uncompensated harms, we're just imposing harm on someone
Yeah, like
that's not
generating suffering.
compensated. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah, honestly, I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's just honestly something I haven't I don't know exactly where I fit
Mm-hmm.
um in it. So yeah, sorry if that's like wishy-washy, but
Yeah,
yeah, no worries.
so yeah, I would say that it's uninformative to me, but I could just ask you do you value like rights, like deontic rights,
Y-
you know, uh, things that we ought not do in a vacuum?
Yeah, I value like multiple things. I value like suffering, but also, I value the idea of consent as well. Um, and I guess consent and autonomy kind of they come one in the same. Yeah, so and yeah, like if I'm going to be real, when I'm thinking about like ethical issues, I I do take like somewhat of a rights approach, um, but obviously it can get to a certain point where the options you're given are just so bad that you have to accept an unnecessary evil. Sorry, a necessary evil, um, from a more utilitarian approach. So like, you're vegan, aren't you? Right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm guess like you I mean, I don't know. We've never met before, but I would assume you also agree, like, animal exploitation. In general, we should sort of be averse to and not do. But there are some, sometimes, we have to sort of accept some level of animal exploitation because otherwise there could be a situation where it would just cause so much harm to others, if you get what I mean.
If you're asking me that, is there any instance of animal exploitation which I would sign off on, then yeah, there's probably many instances like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same with antinatalism. Like, I think, like by and large, the act of procreation is unethical. Like when we're just talking about the ethics of creating the person itself. But when you bring external factors into it, so like for example, if someone said to me, "Oh, well, are you gonna create a child, or I'm gonna like drop a nuclear bomb on, Australia or something, and it's
Hmm.
going to kill millions of people," well, clearly I'm going to have the child then because it's just like the situation I've been
Okay.
put into.
Hmm.
The options are just so so shit that I've got to accept that sort of what I see as a necessary evil. Then, if you get
Right.
what I mean, I don't know if that enlightens you at all.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sort of getting an idea right now. So I think we are kind of in agreement about the normative ethical part. So I think, so I take a view that is on some level kind of like a similar view to what we know as threshold deontology. It's not like I think there are some aspects to it which are like slightly different in my view, but by and large I think that's the view that I take, and I'm not
Yeah.
convinced that antinatalism follows from threshold deontology.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you want to go over any sort of like qualms you have with what you read on the page?
Uh, well, we could go there, but apart from that, I would just like, so to in order for some action to be considered unethical on a threshold deontic view, which is like similar to the view that I take, or I would just say my view, right? I don't want to like invoke keep invoking TD, but okay. On my view, I don't think so. If there is some action that I consider to be unethical, it would be a rights violation, and that is like we add in all the utility differences that come with it, the well-being that is generated, the suffering that is generated, um, and as a sum total of that, if the number is positive, then I think it is good or obligatory depending on how big the number is, and if it is in the negative, then I think it is immoral, regardless of how big the number is, and if the number is if the sum total just comes out to zero, then I just consider it to be morally neutral and do whatever, right? So the case that needs to be made for antinatalism is that this sum total comes out on the net negative. That's the case that needs to be made, and I haven't seen that case being made yet.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a bit confused because you invited me here to have a conversation, so I assumed you would lead the like. Do you have particular issues you wanted to raise, or you wanted me to come here and make the general case? Because
Yeah, I would like. There are a few things that I would like to lead upon, but I would let you make like the general case, and then I would pick out the things eventually. So if you can make a
Yeah.
general case, that'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be saying what you've. I mean, I can add a bit more, but I'm just by and large going to be saying what you've already read on the handbook page. So
Mm.
I'm not sure how useful a time that would be. Give like you've already read um most of what I would say. I mean, what I can go into is why I think the harms are uncompensated, which I'm not sure it talks about that on the page.
So I'm not sure what you mean by uncompensated.
So I'll give an example, which is like a vegan example, which hopefully we'll like find common ground on. So, I don't know how much you've interacted with non-vegans or farmers, but
Oh, quite a bit.
um, yeah. So I'm assuming you've come across this sort of this thing that often farmers will say is that well, it's justified for them to breed animals into existence and exploit them to a certain degree and sort
Mm-hmm.
of quote unquote humanely kill them, which we obviously all know what that means when they
Mm-hmm.
say that. They say that that is justified for them to do because they are compensating for those harms. They're bestowing a benefit, on those animals, and they usually point to the fact that it's like they're giving them a guaranteed supply of food, they're giving them shelter, they are providing medical assistance, etc., etc. Now, we both know in practice that is complete bullshit. Like,
Yep.
they probably will be providing those things. Well, actually, probably not in the terms of medical help. They usually just kill
Oh,
them.
we
But
could just grant that they do that, but that's fine.
yeah, exactly. We can grant that they do that. So let's say they give those animals all of those things. I would say that even though they're giving the animals something,
Mm-hmm.
it's still an uncompensated harm, the exploitation and the killing, because they're imposing that suffering and death on the animal, but the benefit that they say they're giving to the animal is something that they created in the animal to need in the first place, right? So you're not really benefiting someone by, for example, creating hunger in them and then giving them food, right? You should just not create the hunger in the first place. It's not a benefit to create a need in someone and then provide them the means of satisfying that need, because you're the one who created it in the first place. So I would say in that example, the example that farmers give, I would say the harms that they impose on animals are still uncompensated because they made animals need the food and the shelter and the medical attention. If you get what I mean, does that make sense?
Um, I'm still
Sorry, I
so I
can't
don't
hear you.
understand what you mean by uncompensated. So are you saying wait? So is it
So
like if I create hunger in someone, right? Let's say I create some amount of hunger. Let's say 100 points of hunger, and then I feed them enough food to satisfy them for like 200 points. Uh, would you say that's compensated?
Well, maybe we should use the example of animals on farms, because the hunger example I was using to what do you call it, like exemplify like one half of it. So I'll go through the farm example again. So the farmer is imposing a harm on the animals. We can agree that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they are also giving the animals stuff like shelter, food, medical treatment that they claim is a benefit, correct?
Yeah.
Now, I would say that those benefits don't actually compensate for, or benefits, inverted commas, don't actually compensate for the harms that the farmer has imposed, because the farmer made the animals need. It wasn't like the animals needed something anyway, and now the farmer is coming along and benefiting them. It's that the farmer instilled the need in them. So it's manipulative. It's not compensating, if you get what I mean. Does that make sense at all? Or
No, to be honest, no. So let me just try to Like
Okay.
I'll try to rephrase it in such a way, and you tell me if you agree with it. Okay.
Okay.
So I think what because this seems like a utilitarian thing to me. Like imposing suffering, but I'm giving them more well-being or something. Is that what you're saying? Is that what are you claiming that the farmer is claiming?
Yeah, so the farmer is claiming to give them a certain amount, giving them well-being is a bit odd in this example. It's meeting their needs, right? So they have the animals, now they exist, now the farmers created them, they have certain needs, right? They need food, they need medical attention if they are to survive and have a reasonably good life. That is what the farmer is claiming is a benefit to the animals. But I'm saying it's not a benefit. It's clearly meeting an obligation that you have to that animal. So it's not compensating for the harms that you've imposed on them, if you get what I mean. So um,
Wait, so
you know, yeah.
you're saying that the well-being that they generate by, I don't know, feeding them or giving them shelter, that is not well-being? Is that what you're saying?
No, it is well-being. It is well-being. I'm saying it's not a valid compensation.
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by valid compensation.
Okay, so let me give an example. So
Oh, wait. So, do you mean like the well-being generated does not outscale the suffering generated? Is that what you mean?
no, not necessarily. You know what compensation means, right? In general.
Uh, in general, yes, but I don't know how it applies here.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give a different example, which will hopefully like bring more light to the subject. Okay, so say I need I need work, I need a job, right? And I go find a job, and I expect in that job for them to pay me in money, right? Because that money will benefit me. I already need money. So when I give them my time and my labor, they provide me with money, and that is compensating for my loss of time and labor, right? So that they are compensating me in that example. Now, if I go and do the same job, but they turn around and they somehow make me what do you call it? Reliant on a type of drug, right? So often, like a lot of pimps will do this to prostitutes, right? They will make them reliant on a certain drug, and then they pay them in that drug. And I would say that is a form of uncompensated harm because they're imposing harm on the person, but they're not compensating for it because they're just giving them this thing that otherwise would be useless to them. They never needed it in the first place. The prostitute never needed heroin in the first place. The pimp has imposed suffering on them, but also the need for this heroin now, and they're just giving them heroin. So I would say that's an uncompensated harm. Whereas if they gave them money, which the prostitute needed anyway, that would be compensating for them for their time and labor. Does that make more sense?
No, it doesn't. Like I'm getting, like I get the analogy, but I don't get the meaning.
I
Because
honestly don't know how to
if you're
explain it in
talking
any other
about,
way.
because if you're talking
I
about like generating suffering and then generating more well-being that outscales the suffering, I get that, but I am not sure what it means to uh, yeah, I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how else to explain it. Like I've used these examples with so many people and they've got it. So I don't know if maybe it's just like the way I'm explaining it to you, or you're not just getting the specific examples. But like
Yeah,
honestly, I
because when
think
you
if other
say uncompensated harm, like I'm not getting a concept in my head. Like, but when you say something like, "Oh yeah, there is some well-being there is some suffering induced, maybe by killing them, but there is some well-being induced by feeding them for like many multiple years and taking care of them, giving them
Mm.
shelter. There is some well-being that is generated." I get that concept. That's fine, but I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
sure
yeah.
what you mean by like uncompensated, because when you say, because it makes, so when a farmer says I impose some x amount of suffering, but I also give them X plus Y amount of well-being, which is more than the amount of suffering, and that's why it's justified. So okay, so that makes sense to me from a utilitarian case, although I'm not a utilitarian. But like I get that, I understand that, but I'm not
Mm.
sure what it means uh, to have like to generate uncompensated harm. Because like even if it is like uncompensated, it would just cash out in terms of suffering, right?
Um,
At least in the
yeah, but
calculus.
a compensated harm. So I'm trying to think of another way to explain it. So
Because I know, like, I get the analogy. Like, you're saying, the way the pimp puts uh, some prostitute on like drugs to make her dependent or whatever,
yeah, like
and that
okay,
is
I've got
analogous to.
another.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me give one more example and
Sure,
see if we can get through
sure,
it this
sure.
way. Okay, so you've got two children, right? And you want to give them both a vaccine so that they will be immune to a certain disease, right?
Hmm.
Now, with giving them the vaccine, obviously, you know, you're causing them some distress because they probably don't like needles. Then there's also the physical distress of actually getting the injection.
Yeah, suffering.
But yeah, but they get a benefit obviously from having an immune system that is now capable of combating this disease, right?
Hmm.
If they were to come into contact with it in the future. Now, okay, you've got two children. One of the child has a natural immunity anyway to the disease. So let's say you have the child who doesn't have a natural immunity. You give them the vaccine. That is a compensated harm, right? Because yeah, you're imposing some harm on them by giving them the vaccine, but also they're going to get a massive benefit from them. Now, if you gave the vaccine to the child who didn't, who did have a natural immunity, this would be an uncompensated harm because they're not getting a benefit from the harm that you're imposing on them because they had no need for that immunity, that vaccine in the first place because they already have the immunity, if you get what I mean. Does that explain uncompensated harm to you?
So that seems compatible with what I said before. Like in the case of the child where you who does not have natural immunity and you give them a vaccine and then you expect
Mm.
some X amount of well-being, and you expect that the well-being generated would be you would say this is justified because the well-being generated is more than the suffering generated, but in the other case the well-being is going to be generated anyway regardless of whether you give them the vaccine or not. So giving them a vaccine would just put you in the ballpark of a net negative action, and that's why you think is bad. So yeah, that seems compatible with just
Well, no, it could boost their immunity further. Now they could be like you know even more immune, but they were immune in the first place, right? So it could in that example it could bestow some benefit, but they just have no need for it in the
yeah,
first
yeah.
place. It's
So
just like it's
like that again,
unreasonable.
that's also compatible. Like you could say it's
Yeah.
boosting them, so it'll give them some well-being, but not enough to outscale the suffering that is generated. So you could say like that seems compatible. I don't know what's the difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying.
No, there isn't a difference. I'm just explaining it to you again to try and demonstrate the difference between compensated and uncompensated because you were saying that you're just not getting the difference.
Oh, yeah, so I don't get the difference between what I'm saying and what you're saying. So if you're just saying that it is some calculus and the needle pricking is on the negative, I get that. But you're saying that's not what you mean, right? So I don't know what you mean if you don't mean that.
Well, no, I'm just it's the nature of the so there can be well-being generated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they had no need for that well-being in the first place, which is the case with antinatalism, which is what I was going to bring it back to, like that is what makes it uncompensated, if you get what I mean. So in the
No, wait.
example, with the kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? The vaccine can give them immunity, but they
Yeah.
have no need for that immunity, so it's not a benefit that compensates for the harm imposed. And if I link that back to antinatalism, maybe this will, you know, shed some more light on the conversation. If I link that back to antinatalism, when you create someone, you impose suffering and death on them, and actually very significant suffering and death, because we all have if anyone says in their life they don't have significant suffering, they're chatting absolute shit. So we impose significant suffering and death on someone, and we claim that we're compensating those harms with the benefit of well-being, but they never had any need for the well-being in the first place, which is why I'm saying that it's uncompensated, like in the example with the vaccine and the kid. The immunity that comes from the vaccine is not a compensation for the harm that was imposed. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, again, I'm not seeing the difference between what I said and what you said, because when I said that, when I asked you, like, do you mean that some X amount of suffering is generated and some Y amount of well-being is generated, which is less than that of X, then the excess of X that is left is uncompensated. Is that what you mean? And you said no.
No, because in anti-natalism, even if so.
Let's
say you
we don't have to go to antinatalism right now, because like this is on the normative ethics level, right? So antinatalism would just go to applied ethics. So let's just stay in the normative ethics sphere, and then we could like, I need to understand what you mean by uncompensated, because that seems to be part of your normative ethics, and that's how you're leading to antinatalism. So if I don't even understand the normative ethics part, I'm not going to get the applied ethics part.
Yeah, but if I give you the example using antinatalism, you might get it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you were saying, right, that you were trying to understand what I was saying, and I think you were saying that if a harm is imposed on someone, it's uncompensated if the well-being doesn't meet or exceed the... Yeah, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I was saying, the reason I was saying that that's not the character of uncompensated is, and I'll use the example of antinatalism to show you. So if you create someone, and let's say they lead a life like me, like I'll use myself as an example. Clearly I've had suffering in my life. I will die someday. I don't know how I will die. So there's been some suffering and ultimately death as well that's been imposed on me, right?
Yeah.
But generally I've had what would be considered a life, like
right.
Relative to anyone that's ever existed, to anyone that exists now. I'm on like the upper end, right?
Yeah, on the net you have more well-being than suffering.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's the case in reality, but let's just say for the sake of argument, I do, right? Now, I would say that the good stuff I have in my life, the well-being, if you want to put it like that, even though it may exceed the suffering, does not compensate for the suffering, because I had no need for the well-being before I was created. That need, which I now need to satisfy, which you know, in putting a need on someone that they then need to satisfy, I see that as an imposition on someone. That is not a compensation for the harm that's being put on me, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, again, so I don't understand what it means for a non-existent being to have a need or not have a need.
No, they don't have any needs. They don't exist.
I don't know what that means. So I understand what it means that they don't exist, but by virtue of them not existing, I don't know what it means that they don't have the need.
Well, blank space can't have needs, right? Just empty space. There's no one who exists to have a need or a desire or anything like that, right?
Wait, but when you say they don't have a need, it seems like at least in the mental space they have a need. So I don't understand what you mean by that.
In the mental space, they have a need.
Yeah, like
I don't understand what you mean by mental
when
space.
you say they, right? When you say they don't exist.
Yeah, it's a failure of the English language. It's just shorthand. Like I'm just saying they to mean someone who doesn't exist. It's before they exist, right? So we can scrap the word they. Non-existence has no need.
Okay, non-exist. I don't know what it means. So, are you referring to non-existence as a concept?
It's just the so like before you existed, right, as a morally relevant being, there was just non-existence, right, in a moral sense.
I don't know what that means.
I mean, if you don't know what that means, I'm not sure how we can go forward with the conversation.
Yeah, like I don't get a concept when you say so. Okay, but like when you say non-existence, are you referring to an object or are you referring to some concept?
No, it's just the absence of anything. Like, I'll
That
Google
seems like a
what.
concept.
Okay, yeah, call it a concept then. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then I don't know what it means for concepts to have needs or not have needs.
You don't understand how a concept just doesn't have a need. Well, there's no one to hold the need. There's no one to have it.
Yeah, so when you say like a concept does not have a need, I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm pretty sure like most people would okay, so you know how you exist, right? And you now have needs. You need food, water, exercise, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Before you existed, there was no need to be had, right?
By who?
There was no one to hold the need.
By who?
That's what I'm saying. There's no one to have it. There's no need.
Yeah, but so again, there's no need for what? Like because need I think is I see that as a
Nothing.
relational term. So like needs are held by like I don't know, conscious beings or something like that. I don't know what it
Yeah.
means for non-existence to have no need or have a need. I don't know what that means.
You, you're okay. So you understand that a for there to be a need in existence, there has to be a conscious being for it to be attached to, right?
So wait, are you saying like are you saying only conscious beings can have needs or something like that?
Well, you just said that.
Oh no, I didn't say that. I said I understand needs with respect to conscious beings. Maybe even some objects like you could say like my car needs gasoline or something like that. I get that, but I don't know what it means for like a concept like non-existence to not have needs.
Well, there's just the absence of needs.
From where?
What do you mean from where? It's an absence.
Yeah, again, absence or presence, I take it to be related to some spatial relation.
Why? If there's an absence, there is no space needed.
What? What does that mean? Like, I don't
I'm not.
understand what it means. So when you say
You're not intentionally being facetious, right?
no, of course not. Of course, why would I do that? My question is
Well,
like when
I
you
don't know.
say
I didn't. You know, some people like to troll.
no, I'm not
I've never
trolling
met
at
you
all.
before.
I'm not trolling at all. So I'll give you that. So when I say absence or
I'm assuming
presence,
you've watched a lot of Avi and Isaac, right?
ah, you could say that probably.
Yeah, yeah, I could tell.
Yeah. So when you
But
say
anyway, go
something
on.
like absence or presence, right? I take that to be a relational term. Like even if you go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and you go to relations, spatial
Mm.
relationship is one of the subcategories of relations. So when you say something like absence or presence, by itself, I don't think of that as a coherent concept. Uh, Absence from X place, that makes
Okay,
sense to me. But just
okay.
absence on its own, I don't understand that.
I've just looked up absence, right?
Mm-hmm.
and one of the definitions is the non-existence or lack of, right? So it's just absence. There's nothing.
Yeah, so again, so dictionary definitions are not going to be that helpful because there's a lot of we could get into that, but I think that's sort of tangential. But I'll just say that generally dictionary definitions tend to be circular or self-referential, so they are not the best when it comes to philosophical definitions. So if you want to talk about like things from a philosophical point of view, I would encourage you to pick up some definition from, I don't know, so the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy or the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to explain to you, like what I'm getting at, like, and okay, maybe it's the words you're getting hung up on. Like, I just mean nothingless, like empty space, just moral nothingness. So, if the universe had no sentient life in it, right, there would just be moral nothingness. It wouldn't matter what happened in the universe. Would you agree?
Uh, if the universe had no sentient life, it wouldn't matter.
Like there would just be moral nothingness. There wouldn't be nothing morally relevant. It would
But
just be an
it would
empty
matter
moral
to
space.
who? The observer?
Yeah, for us talking about it now.
Yeah, so yeah, it
Y-
wouldn't matter to us, as in it wouldn't make a difference to us. Like we wouldn't have any moral attitude towards the universe. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if we can imagine, right? So I'm imagining in my head now a universe where there's just no sentient life in it, right?
Yeah.
So let's say after the heat death of the universe or something like that, I don't know. There would just be no sentient life left in the universe. I would say in that universe, there would just be empty moral space. There would be nothing of moral relevance there. No one to be harmed, no one to be benefited, no one to have needs, no one to not have needs. It would just be empty moral space, or morally empty space, however you want to put it.
Okay. So do you mean that in a universe with no sentient life, there is no sentient life?
Let me just repeat what you said. In a universe without sentient life, there is no sentient life. That's what you just said?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from your description of moral
Yeah, yeah.
relevance.
By definition, right? In a universe with no sentient life, there is no sentient life. I get like that is sort of like the defining characteristic, right?
Yeah, so I get that. I get that concept, but I don't know what you mean by emptiness or uh, the words you used before. I'm not sure. Absence of need, like absence from where.
Yeah, so in that universe where there's no sentient beings, there would be no needs, right? In morally relevant needs.
There would be no needs. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. With regards to the individual who would be created, that's what I mean.
You mean that there is a universe which does not have needs?
Yeah, so with respect to them, just to them, with respect to them, that would be the case, right? Before they existed,
Yeah,
before they
again,
came
I
into
don't.
being in a morally
Yeah.
relevant sense.
Again, you're invoking someone who doesn't exist, so I don't know what you mean by that.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure how we can go forward, to be honest, because we're just like going around in circles.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
mean
not. I
that's
don't know
kind
if
of
I don't know
the.
if you want to move on. I don't know if you want to move on to like a different issue you maybe had with what you saw on the handbook website.
Yeah, there
Um,
is one thing. So just to be clear, like I so just to be clear, I don't understand what you mean by uncompensated harm. So I don't even so like there's no concept that has been conveyed to me. So I don't even know if it's a coherent concept, to be honest. But yeah,
yeah,
there
that's
is
cool.
one thing that I want to point out is that you've made one of the recent posts on the handbook Instagram pages about the niche replacement argument, right?
Sorry, say that again.
The niche, the like the wildlife suffering argument. You've
Yeah,
made a
yeah,
post about that recently.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point out that that is actually a straw man. So that's not what pronatalists are claiming anyway. So just wanted to
Okay.
clarify
Do
that.
you want to? Yeah. Do you want to go through that?
Yeah, sure. So the very opening page. Wait, let me just pull it up. Right, one sec. Anti-Natalist handbook. Yeah. So the very first page on that particular post that you've made, right? It says we
Yeah.
need to procreate to ensure wild animal suffering doesn't spread.
Mm.
Do you think that's the position natalists take?
Well, not all natalists. Most natalists don't even think about these
Yeah.
things. But the people that have made this argument to me have said that the one of the reasons that they disagree with or are averse to, however you want to put it,
Mm-hmm.
antinatalism, is because they think that procreation is a what it seems like how they're saying it, a necessary part of displacing wild animal suffering, and without humans in existence, um,
There would be more
wild
suffering.
animals would. Yeah, exactly. Um, which I can't remember word for word what I say in the handbook, but
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, my thinking has changed on this recently, which is why I was saying to you I like to treat the abstract conversation and the practical conversation differently. I think that wild animal suffering is more of a cause for concern than human procreation, so I think it is something that we should focus on more than human
Yeah,
like
I get that.
if you're an yeah, if you're an antinatalist that wants to do good in the world, and you see preventing beings from being created in the first place as, you know, a good thing, then I think focusing on wild animal suffering or some other issues is more pressing.
Yeah, so just to be clear, so
Mm.
this, like, I'm not sure who ran it by you, but if this is how they ran it, then they're running it wrong. But the
Mm.
idea is this is not the proposition that natalists, like even like people like if you like, I think this was the one of the first people to propose it was Avi. So this is
Well,
not the view.
do you just want to do you just want to like state the correct one?
Yeah, so the correct one isn't even so it's not even making a proposition, right? So it's just taking the natalist argument. The natalist argument being if giving birth to children is sorry, if giving birth to children generates suffering. Uh, wait, it's one sec. Just to let me think about it.
When you say natalist argument, do you mean antinatalist or
Oh
natalist?
yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah. I mean anti-natalist. So it's
Okay.
like if you give birth to children, then there would be an increase in suffering. You give birth to children, therefore there's an increase in suffering, right? Do you sign off on that?
No, that's not what antinatalists are saying. That might be like what some of them are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might say that, but that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so which premise do you disagree with?
Well, if I had a kid tomorrow, it might not necessarily like if you look over the course of their lifespan, it might not overall increase suffering.
But do you think there is more suffering than there was before they were born? It could be
Do you
outscaled.
mean
That's a
day?
different question,
Do
right?
you mean day to day?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean as in like today there's the amount of suffering there is, and tomorrow when I create the child,
Mm-hmm.
I've added a bit of suffering to the world,
Yeah.
and I'm just measuring it from the day they were born. I don't take into account anything that they do over their lifespan.
Wait. No. So it's like if you look at it, like if you take today, right? Today there is X amount
Mm.
of suffering.
Yeah.
Tonight you give birth. Tomorrow will there be more suffering than today?
So you're just talking about tomorrow. You're not talking about the 70 plus years that they will probably live.
I am talking about that.
Okay, but you just said tomorrow.
Yeah, like by tomorrow, I just mean their lifespan, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, they will live more than tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
No, not necessarily.
Wait, so you think there wouldn't be more, but like
No, there
you.
could be,
Hmm?
but there may not be. It depends what they do with their life.
Depends what they do. Like, okay, are you confusing between suffering that is outscaled by well-being, or you just talking about suffering?
No, I'm just talking about suffering.
Okay, then I don't see how that follows, because if you're going to say that we are going to like if you give birth, then there's going to be like children with who are going to have multiple types of suffering, like even maybe mental or physical or whatever. Just take the average person, and you would have some suffering, even though it also has well-being.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, so I don't see how it wouldn't follow that there would be more suffering today than tomorrow. Sorry, tomorrow than today.
Well, so you think there would be more suffering tomorrow than today?
Mm, not really. It's the negative utilitarian anti-natalist that I'm talking about.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm just not one of those, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm not sure.
the niche replacement argument is just an internal critique of negative utilitarians. Um, is just so just to be clear, negative utilitarianism is where people just value the suffering. They don't value well-being. They don't care if well-being is generated or not. They don't think well-being cancels out suffering. Um,
Mm.
and basically, the idea is if you give birth, then the child is going to suffer. Um, and if you're going to give birth, therefore the child will be well, you could say the world has more suffering before the child was born as compared to child after the child was born. So
So that they think,
niche replacement is
yeah.
just an internal critique. It disputes the first premise of the argument and presents a counterexample where they just say that that's not necessarily the case, because if we don't have children, right? Um, like even if we have children, there could be a case that it could have less suffering than if we didn't have children. So the first premise is if you have
Are you,
children, there will
when
be
you
more
say have
suffering.
less suffering, do you mean that child or do you mean the world?
The world.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So that's just what niche replacement is talking about.
Yeah, yeah, they say that, but like, so the people I've come across who have put this argument forward are very disingenuous about it. So they use this argument as a form of intellectual masturbation, um, which seems like just to sort of as a sort of intellectual cover for their own desire to have a kid. Is my
I don't see
feeling.
why that matters.
No, I was about to say it's not. That's not a sort of any shade on the argument itself.
Mm-hmm.
I actually agree with the argument. I'm just saying I think the people who put it forward, you were saying that's what they mean. I'm not necessarily sure that it is what they mean. I think they often use it as a guise.
Well, I
Um,
do. Well, unless we have mind reading powers or something like that, I don't see how we can resolve that.
No, we can't. I'm just saying I think that. Like I think this argument is often put forward disingenuously, but I agree with the argument itself, which is why I say like I don't think human procreation is the number one like cause area that anti-natalists should be focusing on. I think we should be focusing on wild animal suffering, potentially the worst excesses of AI that could potentially come around. Also, animal exploitation as well, like what humans do to animals. I think these issues are all more important than human procreation, but I still think human procreation in itself is an unethical act. I just think it's a necessary evil for now.
Okay, so as like in practice, you're a natalist
It depends what you no. It depends what you mean by natalist. Like, no, I'm
by
not going to
having
have a
like
child,
just
and
having children.
no, I'm not going to have children. No.
Okay, so you say it's a necessary evil, but you're not going to do it. That seems weird to me.
Why?
Yeah, you said it's necessary, right? And I just take necessary to mean not doing it would be bad.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I have to do it.
Sure.
My time can be better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, that's fine. But then I'm not sure I would classify that as necessary evil.
Well, if you want to help wild animals and alleviate their suffering, some level of human procreation is going to be necessary, right?
Uh no, I'm not sure if that's true.
Okay, I mean, you can pick these like niche examples of things that may happen, but by and large, in the future that we will probably have, like as far as I can see, like unless I don't know if you're thinking of like, oh, humans are going to transition into AI and like or we're going to like upload our brains and then we can just replicate ourselves that way, but
Mm-hmm.
like um yeah, if we're just like if we're being like reasonable, I think that in the future we're still going to be like heavily relying on like human procreation, right?
I think
So
that's then we're just talking about different things when we're talking about necessary, because I just take necessary to mean something that is true in all possible worlds.
okay, yeah, okay, well, like don't call it necessary then.
Yeah, so I don't see how it's a necessary evil anyway. But apart from that, just to be clear, you do understand that uh, even if someone is making a disingenuous uh,
I
even if
know.
someone is disingenuously using niche replacement, doesn't actually cast shade on niche replacement itself. And like,
Yeah, I've already said that.
yeah, and I don't like, I'm not sure who uses it that way, but even if someone does, they're saying like they're just saying they don't have any reason to believe that they're doing anything bad by procreating, even if they are like, even if they're using niche replacement to say it, like even if they say that something like uh I'm not sure what you've heard, but if someone says something like, I'm having children because it's possible that they would alleviate suffering, is that something that you come across?
Yeah, I've heard people say that. I just don't think they've thought about the issue enough. Like, I think if someone is the type of person where they think about procreation in that way, they are clearly the type of person who can do more good in the world by spending their time and money doing good in the world rather than having a child and hoping that child will do good in the world. Because there's no guarantee that like their child may be non-vegan, like they might reject veganism, and then they're going to cause loads of like harm in
Yeah,
the
so
world,
they
right?
just don't have a reason to believe one way or the other. They could be agnostic on what their child is doing. They could be agnostic on whether the child will remain vegan or not. They could be like, it's a 50-50. Now you have to make the case that what is going one way the other or the other.
Okay, but if it's 50-50, those seem like pretty shit odds, right? When you know that you can, if you just don't have a kid, you can guarantee that you're going to be doing good in the world. So, like, for me, like, if
Well, no,
I,
50-50 is when you take into consideration nothing else. So they could be like, well, I would raise the child in this XYZ way, and that increases the probability that they would be doing good. So, yeah. So that increases the odds beyond 50. 50 is just complete agnostic view. There could be other things that move the scale towards 50. Sorry, away from 50 towards more than 50. So you would have to make that case that it's not the case that it is moving closer to 100% and moving closer to 0%.
yeah, well, I mean, I think if they want to do effective good in the world, they'd also have to make the case, right, that having a kid is going to be doing the most good because
No, I don't see them making a
it's an
positive claim here.
it's
They are just
wait, let me just finish. It's an opportunity cost, right? Which is I don't know if you read the whole page on the handbook website, but at the bottom it talks about opportunity costs. Like um if someone wants to do good in the world and they want to put forward the argument that actually procreation could be a means of doing good, I'm not saying that's the niche replacement argument. I'm just saying some people are like pro-natalist in that way. They would have to put like show that like having a kid is so effective at doing good that it overcomes the good that would be done via adoption or
No,
fostering,
they don't have to make that
or not
case.
having a kid at all, and doing good in other ways like earning to give as well. You know, like having a kid sacrifices a lot in many people's careers, and if they wanted to boost their income so that they could give to effective charities more, to me that seems like, I don't know if anyone's done a study on this,
They don't
but it
have to
seems
make that
reason.
claim, to be honest. They don't have to make that case because they haven't made the claim.
Yeah, but some people have made that claim. I'm not saying you have, I'm just saying some people have, and then they would need to show.
Yeah, if someone has made the claim, then yes. But generally,
Yeah,
like
which is
from
what I
my
said.
awareness of people who deploy niche replacement or any such similar kind of argument, they are just doing that as an internal critique rather than an external critique. So they don't have to make any case. They are just presenting this as sort of like an alternative hypothesis. Now it falls upon you who made the initial claim to show that the alternative
Sorry,
hypothesis
what initial claim? Sorry.
that it is unethical to have or birth or create children.
Okay, but yeah, but that's a claim. That's a claim in the abstract when we're not talking about external factors. So I don't think that person does have to make that case.
But wait, why? They've made the claim, right?
Yeah, but they're talking about it on an abstract level.
So what?
That which is why I said it's good to have the conversation about the abstract and the practical separately. If they make a practical claim, then they would have to make the case. Sure.
I don't know what's the difference because the abstract informs the practical, right?
Yeah, sure. But for example, so let's
Like,
say,
do you think the practical
if
would be influenced if not for the abstract thought?
yeah, it would be influenced, but it's not the whole thing. Like I said, like I view procreation in a negative way. Like I see it as a harm, but because of the practicalities of it, I think we should focus our energy elsewhere. It's like, let me give an example. I think circuses using animals is wrong, right? It's a harm, even though it may bring benefit to many people through entertainment and employment and stuff like that. But I see it as a bad thing. But I'm not going to focus my time on trying to shut down circuses because there are way bigger evils going on in the world. If we alleviate, you know, many of the other evils, and then we want to get to circuses, then I will spend time campaigning against them. But I'm not going to waste my time now campaigning against circuses.
That's your preference, right? Someone could want to
Yeah, I know
do it
that's
for
my preference. That's why I'm doing that.
yeah. So someone else could want to shut down circuses.
Yeah, they could, and I would have a conversation with them and ask them, like, do you think this is the most effective form of your time? Like, why do you want to shut down circuses? They would probably say, because I don't want animals to suffer in them. And I would say, well, if you don't want animals to suffer, then there are these other things that we should maybe be focusing on.
And
I think that's reasonable.
Mhm. What do you mean? Like if
What is
someone
in
just
why do I
has a
think it's
preference
reasonable?
to if someone just has like I have a preference to shut down the circus.
Yeah, if you had, yeah, but I would ask you, okay, like, why do you have that preference? And you would probably say, because I don't want the animals to suffer in there will be used, right?
Yeah, or I could just say that no, I don't know why I have the preference. I just have the preference.
Okay, yeah, if you just have the preference and you don't know why, I would just say, okay, I'll leave you to it. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. If you wanna shut down the circus, then go for it. I think like I kind of think you're, you know, kind of like there's an opportunity cost there. But if you want to close down circuses, I support closing down circuses. You go ahead and do that. But I just think, you know, I would rather have you on my team, you know, fighting these other things because I think your time would be better spent.
Well, better again is a relational term. Like better according to whose
Okay,
preferences.
when I say better, I mean for the victims.
Better for so when you say better, you mean better for the victims.
Yeah,
So like
the
the
animals.
definition
Yeah.
of better has better in it.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't giving like an actual word for word definition. Like
So when you say better, what
honestly,
do you
man,
mean?
I think you've been watching like way too much Avi and Isaac. Like it really comes through. Um, like
I mean,
I'm
I'm
not
like,
saying that.
yeah, I'm
I'm not
not.
saying that as any form of argument.
I
I'm
don't
just
see how
saying
that's
like,
relevant, to be honest.
well, I think it's relevant to having conversations because it hinders the conversations you have with people. Like you can make less ground with them and you connect
Yeah,
with people
I
less.
don't see how that's relevant. So what do you mean by better?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna get anywhere in this conversation, to be honest. And this is what I mean, like with like following, like I think Avi and Isaac have done a lot of good in the movement, but they also
I'm
often
not
treat
here to
people
talk
like
about
shit.
Isaac and Avi. I'm here to talk about what you like your views. That's not what I want to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So what do you mean
Well,
by
I'm
better? You said is better, time is better spent, and by better
it
you said
it
is better
helps
spent
it
for the
helps
animals.
yeah, it helps animals more. I think you're being intentionally facetious because you're also vegan. You know
Hmm.
what helps animals. You know what is better for animals, right? Like we know where to
By
spend
better,
our
if you
time. Like
mean what I prefer, then yeah, but I don't know what you mean by better.
okay, let's just like round off because like I'm not convinced this like conversation is like fully good faith anymore.
Wait, what's the bad faith?
Well, I don't think you're making any effort to be what would I call it? Like, so if you use like if you were saying what I was saying, like I would make an effort to be like, okay, I know what the guy's saying, even though I don't like even though he hasn't said word for word exactly
But if I don't, why would
what
I
he.
say it? If like, why would I waste
Okay,
your
but man,
time? Wait. Why would I
you're
waste?
human.
One
I
sec.
think
One
you
sec.
do know.
One sec. So why would I? You saying something, right? And I don't
Yeah.
understand it, but I'll just roll along with it and I'll waste your time. So that down the
Yeah, but
stream, I'll
you do
just so that
you do understand what I'm saying.
okay. What's the argument for that? I have better access to my thoughts than you do.
Yeah, okay. This this is what I mean.
Like
Like,
you're making a
yeah,
claim,
I
right?
don't.
You're making the claim that I do know it. So substantiate the claim.
No, I was just like literally. This is getting to autist level.
Dude,
Like
I'm not interested in talking about this. I'm talking about what I'm interested in talking about what you mean. So when you say better, what do you mean?
it improves like it's clear. You know what I mean. You're vegan, right? Like you understand. Like what we want to do
I
is
know what
improve
I
the
mean. I don't know
situation for
what you
animals.
mean. I so when you say is it better to spend time doing outreach for farm animals, and if by better, so I know what I mean by better. I know
Yeah, it
that by
improves
better
the
it just means
situation for animals more. It tangibly changes their situation more. Less animals are being abused. The ones that are in existence are going through less pain and suffering and are being
wait, no, wait. So
killed less.
when I say my time is better spent here than there, I just mean that I prefer my time being spent here than there. That's just what I mean. That's what I mean, but I don't know what you mean.
I think you're saying you don't know what I mean, but I think you know what I mean. Like if you were having a normal conversation with someone and not like a debate. I don't know if you came here thinking this was a debate,
No,
but like if you were having
I
a
didn't have
normal
any such
conversation,
preconception.
okay, but if you were having like a normal conversation with someone at the shop or you know with friends,
Yeah,
you would
I
not
wouldn't
be
understand what they mean.
okay. Well, honestly, I'm not saying this as an insult, but I think your social skills are like highly impaired then because
That's fine.
it's such
Like
a
that's fine. I can't do anything about that, to be honest. Even if that's
yeah.
true, I can't do anything about it. But if you want to
Well, I think you
convey a
can. I think
concept,
people can work on their social skills.
well, I'm not convinced that is true anyway. But like
Well, I don't know.
I'm not convinced that they are bad, but even if I grant that, if you want to convey some concept to me, you would have to explain it to me. But
Mm.
like you just like you haven't. Like, what do you? So you haven't conveyed to me what you mean by better. If by better you don't mean your preferences, I don't know what you mean.
Okay, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not sure this is going to be useful use of either of our time. So, like, I'm happy to wrap it up there, unless you have any like other quick like things that you really didn't like. Any separate questions that you like didn't understand on the page or anything. But
I'm sure there are, but I think it would just boil down to the usage of terms, and there would be some
yeah,
terms like better or uncompensated harm, some terms that I just don't understand, and you not being willing to clarify that. So I think that's what it's going to be bottoming out at.
yeah. Well, I mean, I have been willing. I have clarified both of them, but like, I think you just still haven't got
Yeah,
it. So maybe
the
it's just
concept hasn't
a
been conveyed to me. Yeah.
we're crossing wires or we're talking past each other. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else before we finish.
Well, I guess that's what I. There are some concepts that you're invoking to make the case, but I'm just not convinced that those concepts are coherent, and I just don't see a reason why anyone would accept uh, your your views. That's all.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like a lot of people do. I think a lot of people are more what is the word? I've forgotten the word. More uh charitable, put in more energy, and like can like understand where people are coming from more
Well,
on like a
if
just a
you're going
human
to
to
say
human
I'm not
level.
being charitable, I expect you to make an argument for that.
I said more charitable. I didn't
Yeah,
say you were
if
being uncharitable,
that's
but
not
like,
what I said. I said if you're saying that there are like I'm being less charitable than
okay,
other
well,
people,
I'll
you would
take
have
it
to
back
make
because
me
I
an
honestly can't be asked to get into more like autistic debates on this.
cool. Yeah, I
So I
appreciate the
can
concession.
take
Yeah.
that back. Yeah, even yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you have nothing else you want to say, I'm happy to like round it off there.
Cool. I guess that's all that I have to say.
Cool.
Yep.
Nice one. All right. Well,
Yeah,
have a
nice
good
talking to you.
rest of the day, man.
Yep. You too. You too.
Okay. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye bye. See you.